Hey, you beautiful beings. Welcome back to another episode of Empowered Human with Nina Garcia, the growth oriented podcast that helps you transform from powered to empowered so you can courageously own your truth without invalidating yourself and also without invalidating others. If you are new here, welcome, friends. If you are an oldie but a goodie, welcome back to another episode in which we are really trying to help you all feel more confident and more secure at your core. Yes, in your emotional arena. Yes, in how you human. So let's dive in. I'm going to tell you right now, this episode's going to run a little bit differently than our usual episodes, okay? Because today's episode is very much by an American citizen for American citizens. The skills I'm going to offer you today are universal for all human beings everywhere, okay? They're going to be universal to your humanity, okay? Which is does not something that changes, right? Dependent on your nationality. However, because we have so much going on as Americans right now, and there is a lot of uncertainty and a lot of change right now, for better or worse, right? We can all agree, I'm hoping transparently, that there's a lot of change happening right now. And change always means some degree of uncertainty. And so we are going to dive in today because the question that seems to be on so many people's Facebooks and Instagram stories and all of the things is, what can I do as an American to empower America? Like, what's the one thing that I can do, Nina, in order to make a difference right now? Because I feel helpless, because I feel like things are out of control, because I feel like I don't understand what's happening and it's all happening so fast. The changes are happening so fast. So I want to invite you to take a breath on in. Ooh, yes, let it out. Take a minute and slow down with me. Just a minute. Because so much of what's happening on a national level, maybe in your community, and maybe even internally with you, is built on being able to run quickly and not ask questions and make a next jump decision. And I actually want to say one of the tools that you can use as an American or as a human being, of course, to empower America, though, because that is the question of today's episode, is to slow down. I know, to get back into the present, shocking, but that is one of the tools that you can use. So I always start this episode and I say, here's the question of the episode that I've already given you. What one thing can I do as an American to empower America? The answer in a nutshell that I also like to give at the top of the episode is, of the many skills that we are going to explore in this episode, a table of consent. I am going to offer you a tool that we use in the Empowered Human Universe called Table of Consent, and it helps empower a narrative that serves everyone, okay? That serves everyone, which, of course, if you're a proud American, you want to serve all Americans. Do you not? If there are any questions on whether you do, you might want to listen to our last episode in which we talked about the anti-supremacist spectrum. We're not going to explore that today, but if that tickles your fancy, dial into the last episode. Today, grab your journal or a really good friend to dialogue with about what is inevitably going to come up for you in today's episode, because of course, you know, at this point, I am so curious. Are you ready to play? Let's take another breath on in. Of course, you know you can exhale that because what am I trying to offer there when I say take that breath in and that exhale is for you to ground. I want you to be present with me in this moment because too many of us are future tripping or past tripping. There's already something else you can jot down in that journal of yours. Future tripping, when your emotions are really focused on something that could happen or that it wants to happen in the future. So it's not actually responding to what's in the present. Past tripping. Past tripping is when your emotions are responding to something that has happened in the past as if it's happening in the present. It's also taking you out of the present. You picking up what I'm putting down? Take a breath on in, because one of the greatest tools that you may have at your disposal right now is to breathe, slow down, ground, and take a minute. But it's not going to be all the skills that we have today, folks, okay? Yes, while breath work can be important for those human beings out there who need it, I want us to dive into this question again of what one thing can I do as an American to empower America, okay? First off, like, can we talk about the difference between America and an empowered America. That's powered America, capital P, powered, versus empowered America, capital E, empowered. Okay. So, when we talk about a power dynamic here, right, this is the self is being held up above the other. And if you agree with the person who's in power, who says that they're the one who has the power, right, if you agree with them, you're going to be just fine, right? You're not going to rock the boat. You're just going to keep going. But when you disagree, in a powered dynamic, the person who has the most power and who is quote unquote in charge, right, or seen as in charge, is the person who gets to make the decisions. And so they can choose to minimize you, misrepresent, or outright reject you until you get in line with what they believe again. Okay. Again, a powered individual has the opportunity to choose, they believe they have this, to basically invalidate you so long as you don't agree with them. Once you agree with them, it's all sunshine, butterflies, and rainbows again, right? It's smooth sailing from there, quote unquote. So if you agree with a powered version of America, a good example of this might be, say, we have our president, right? And it really doesn't matter which president, actually, because this skill is so universal. It doesn't matter if it's Biden, if it's Trump. I know, right? You're like, what, Nina? Of course it does. Stay with me. Stay with me. Yes. In a powered version of America, you would say that the president has the most power over you as an individual citizen. Okay. And in a powered version of America, you would say, whatever the president says goes. I don't want to rock the boat. I believe that they have the power. I trust them, or I'm going to put my trust in them, whether I trust them or not. Whatever they say or do, I'm going to let go. I'm not going to question it because I don't want to change the dynamic. I don't want to question them because I don't want to risk being invalidated. I don't want to risk being minimized, misrepresented, or outright rejected. I don't want that. So I'm just going to let the powered dynamic continue and I'm not going to question it. If you are okay with a powered version of America, you can own that truth here. You are allowed to own that truth here because in your lived experience, that's what you believe is best. But I'm going to tell you right now, folks, you are not going to like this episode. This episode is not for a powered America. This episode, as with everything Empowered Human, is for transforming from powered to empowered. So now I'm going to tell you what an empowered America looks like. And if you have the courage to stay on with me and just hear something different, maybe not better, maybe not worse, right? It's just different. If you have the courage to stay on and hear something different, then I am going to offer you something different than maybe your lived experience up to this point has given you. An empowered version of America looks like this. We have a variety of different ideas, and we understand that based on different lived experiences, that there are as many ways to show up as an American as there are Americans, right? There's so many different ways to do it. And so when we say an empowered America, same relationship that we used in the earlier example. We've got the president over here and we've got you as an individual citizen. But instead of a powered dynamic where one of you is willing to knock out the other, we're going to empower this. And in empowered America, we say nobody is worth more or less. So the president is not worth more or less than any individual citizen. And when we say this means that neither the citizen nor the president's ideas about how America should be run are worth more or less. They're just different. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't do more or less damage or more or less harm, but that's actually not what we're talking about right now. I want you to stay with me in this present moment about an empowered America, because if we say that neither the president nor the citizen's ideas are worth more or less than the other, what we're saying is that when the president makes a decision, whatever that decision might be, that the individual citizen does not just accept it without question. They get curious and they say, I see that decision that you made. You made that decision based on your lived experience, President. And now I'm going to say, how does this affect me as an individual? How does this affect myself? And then, because I'm an empowered human, I'm going to ask, how does this affect others in my life? The people I care about, the people I know most, the people I see every day or every week or every month, those people, how is it going to affect them? And then you're going to ask, last but certainly not least, how does this affect the world at large? Empowered humans are always thinking systemically, self, other, world at large. And so when you have this empowered dynamic here between the president and the citizens in our example, what you're looking at is we're going to get curious and we're going to question. Even if you love what the president said, even if you hate what the president said, you're going to get curious and you're going to make sure that what you're feeling also matches the reality of what is happening around you. That if the president says this is going to nourish you and make you better, that it actually, in fact, is making you as an individual. It's affecting you in the way that it's intended, that it affects others in your life the way that it's intended, and that it affects the world at large the way that it's intended, and also the way that you hope. Okay? What the president might intend, for example, might not be the same thing that actually benefits you. He might be trying to disenfranchise you, or vice versa, right? President might be trying to disenfranchise some people, but it actually helps you. So it can work both ways. And I really want us to think about this as empowered as we can. Yes. So again, an empowered individual is not willing to invalidate something just because it is different. We really say it's not, worth more or less. It's just different. Now, how do we build a bridge of understanding? Okay. So, with that bridge of understanding, again, go to your journals. We've got a few new pieces that we've added in before I talk to you about the table of consent. We've talked about powered versus empowered, and how in a power dynamic, the individual with the more power is willing to invalidate you so long as you're not agreeing with them. And once you get into agreement with them, right, then of course the boat's not being rocked, all is fine and dandy. Okay. In an empowered dynamic, we're not willing to do that. We say, no, I'm not going to invalidate you. I'm going to understand that your lived experience is different than mine. And I'm also not going to automatically agree with you. I'm going to get curious and I'm going to say, well, how does what you believe affect me as an individual, others in my life, and the world at large? Write that down in your journal, because any of these can be skills that you do when you ask yourself, what one thing can I do as an American to empower America? You picking up what I'm putting down? I'm going to keep going, okay? So we keep going. This table of consent I keep talking about, this table of consent. I want you to imagine, same example that we have with the president and an individual citizen, which is you, my friend, right? It's me. It's all of us listening in. For the most part, we do have an international audience, but most of us have leaders, right, that are leading our countries. And so let's continue to apply this. The table of consent works like this. I want you to imagine that between the president and that individual citizen, that there is a table. And that everything that we offer to somebody else, when we say, hey, I want you to think this, I want you to feel this, I want you to act this way, right? This is what I believe and I want you to be this way. What it's like doing is it's like taking a dish of food, if you will, your dish of food, something you understand and you know and you're very familiar with. And it's like pushing it across the table and saying, here, I want you to eat this because I believe it's going to nourish you. This is the premise of the table of consent, that every time you offer something, no matter if it sounds like a demand or a command, I actually want you to start to see this as an offering, something that someone is trying to give you based on their lived experience. And you know what, folks? You can say, I'm going to get curious about this dish that you're trying to offer me. Does this, in fact, nourish me as an individual? Does this, in fact, nourish the people around me? Does this, in fact, nourish the world at large? And if you find, folks, in that moment that it does not nourish you as an individual, you have the power within you to say, no, no, thank you. Hey, I see that. That's not for me. Hey, I see that. And that totally makes sense in your lived experience. Now here's mine. And at this point, after you've pushed that dish back to their side of the table and not consumed a narrative or story that doesn't make sense for you because it doesn't nourish you yet, not that we see yet, this is where you bring in your own lived experience, your own truth, and you put that dish on the table. And you say, here's what's happening in my lived experience. Here's the dish that I want to offer and put on the table. So now, if you've been paying attention, we've got the president and an individual citizen who have dishes on the table based on their lived experience. It's the president's job to make offerings to the citizens. And it is also our responsibility as citizens to make offers back to the president. And so at this point, we'll pause the table of consent because I really want to make sure that we are looking at the different facets of this. We've got one person on either side of the table, right? And in this example, it is the president and the individual citizen, but it could be anyone across that table in your life who has a different experience than you. Quick break for a sec. If Empowered Human is offering you something valuable about courage, healing, belonging, or love at your core, you may want to work with me. In particular, if you know of or identify as a high achieving man, and I say this quite seriously because if you don't, I'm going to drive you up a friggin' wall. High achiever that has leveled up in every arena except your relationship with yourself or your relationships with others. Visit empoweredhuman.love for more on how you can level up in your relationships with one of our Empowered Human intensives. Intensives understand the value of your time. Of the 3 that I offer, Walk into Courage covers a month's worth of weekly sessions in just 2 hours. Dive into Courage is a 3-day intensive that can cover up to 6 months worth of sessions. And Ascend into Courage is a year-long program to give you the skills and the network you need to level up for lifelong emotional security. When it comes to leveling up in your relationships, I got you. Head to empoweredhuman.love for more. But for now, back to the episode. We also want to look at, as we are making these offerings, that even if something sounds like a command or a demand, that I want you to start to think of it as an offering. Write that down. How can I start to think of moments where I feel like I have no power and actually transform that and say, you know what? This is a table of consent moment. This is actually a moment in which I need to see this as an offering. They're offering this to me, even though it sounds like a command or demand, and it might be commanding or demanding. You're going to see it as an offering. And you're going to remember this moment when you realized you have the power to say, wait, that does not nourish me. And you pass that bowl back to their side of the table and you put your bowl on the table. Your voice belongs at the table. Your voice belongs at the table. But if we don't use that voice, your story, your lived experience doesn't end up at the table. You don't get to voice a different experience than this individual. And so that individual, of course, says, oh, if you don't have a dish on the table, I'm just going to keep adding dishes to the table because I think I know what's best. And they really do believe that they know what is best. But without your voice, how can anything truly include everyone? How can we truly empower America if we don't have all Americans sitting at the table, right? All the voices of Americans sitting at the table. And so here's a reality check, right? And we're going to move into the next section of our episode, which is, let's get some perspective here. I want you to actually step into this example, okay? I want you to put yourself on one side of the table, and I want you to put somebody else in your life on the other side of the table. And of course, we're talking powered dynamics here, right? Power dynamics here, excuse me. And I want you to start to think about, what is the relationship that you have here? Because even if we look at president and citizen, right? The president might have financial power that you don't have, right? Your boss might have, what is the word that I'm looking for? A business power, right? Or a hierarchy power that you don't have, right? If you're an employee there, your partner may have a different power that you don't have, right? If they're working and you're not working, and so on and so forth, right? In these different relationships that we have, very human to human relationships, there's different types of power. But when we think about table of consent, it remains true at the core. You're on one side, they're on the other, and both of you have different dishes to offer, not worth more or less, different. So, how do we build a bridge of understanding to create a dish, an offering here, that truly nourishes both people who are sitting at the table? That is the image that I really want you to take with you. The next time you're having a conflict, as you put yourself into this example of the table of consent in a relationship that you're having, think about the conflict. What is the offering that they have on the table? What is the offering that you have on the table? Two different lived experiences here. How do we create a dish that nourishes both people at this table? Now, typically, at the end of the episode, I will give you very specific adventure challenges, is what we call them. And I will say, here's your level one self awareness challenge, your level two self knowledge challenge, and your level three self realization challenge. And you might still have those for yourself, right? Awareness is now, here's something I wasn't aware of before, and now I am. And that might be what you journal about or what you give your own adventure challenge on this week. You might be in the self knowledge category where you're like, now I know what I could do differently, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do differently. That would be your self knowledge adventure challenge, right? Between this episode and the next episode, right? This upcoming week. And if you're a self realizing level three adventure challenger, right? You're going to say, now I am aware and I know, and I am going to commit to doing this one thing. I am actually going to invite you right now to commit to doing one thing. I'm going to invite you to commit to either thinking about something in this episode that might have kicked something up for you. I want to invite you to think about that. I want to invite you to know what your options are, to have that list set down of what your different options are for the one thing you can do as an American to empower America, to build a bridge of understanding, is to share your voice in your lived experience, not your feelings or your fears or for future tripping or past tripping. I mean, genuinely, your lived experience of what is happening to you right now. Okay. That's one of the skills, to be able to use the table of consent. Now you know that's an option. To be able to get curious, whether you love what the president's doing, hate what the president's doing, all of us should be getting curious and really know and understand, here's how this is affecting or nourishing me as an individual, how it's nourishing others and the world at large, right? Always self, other, world at large. Now that's another tool you know you can use. Powered versus empowered America, really being able to ask yourself, wow, am I powered versus empowered in these relationships? Am I thinking about whether I want a powered or an empowered America? This is a genuine question. I don't know the answer, and I'm not going to tell you you should want an empowered America. I'm going to tell you you should know what it is you believe. That's the empowered human reality. Is I want you to validate what it is you believe. And if it doesn't work for you and you find that a powered America is not bringing you joy, is not bringing you peace, is not helping you feel more confident and secure at your core in your emotional arena and in the way you human here in America, if that powered version of America is not working for you, what's the one thing that you can commit to empower America between this week and next week? Because that, of course, is the last adventure challenge. I want you to commit to taking action, just the one thing from this list of now what you know you could do. There are a few different options here. What's the one thing that you'd commit to? That is what I planned for you today, folks. I hope that it has been helpful and that you've been able to take at least one thing from this episode, right? Where we're really asking ourselves, what one thing can I do? That's it, just one. You don't have to do a million things. We're challenging perfectionism here. You don't have to do a million things. You just have to do one. And for many of us, the answer may be today, Nina, I'm going to get curious. That's it. I'm just going to get curious about how any decision is really affecting me, others in the world at large. I'm going to get curious, Nina. And my hat is so off to you for having the courage to explore. Thank you for being you. Thank you for showing up here on Empowered Human with moi. And of course, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, we've got lots of resources available for you in the show notes. Just scroll down, click the link, and you'll be able to get access to different experiences and resources and things that we have on YouTube and Instagram and quizzes and all the good things. So write down any last minute thoughts you have. Take a minute after this episode if you need it, because that is, of course, what we started with. So you know what, folks, actually, why don't we end with that? Let's take a breath on in and let it out at your leisure. Ground. And don't be afraid to just take a minute. Thanks for being here with me. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.